Good evening and welcome to the Timberlane Regional School District Budget Committee meeting. Today is November 14th, and we're going to start this meeting. So, Jeff, can you please call the roll?
I would be happy to. Kathy Gorman, John Hughes,
Here.
David Gurns,
Here.
Julie Hammond, Michael Mascola,
Here.
Todd McCormick,
Here.
Brian Boyle,
Here.
Peter Bealow,
Here.
Phyllis Sherwood,
Here.
Alan David.
Okay. David, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just arrived. We'll note the time. Just in time, Julie. So if everybody can take a look at the meeting minutes from our last meeting, October 24th.
I will propose change.
Okay. What do you have?
On page 3, in the middle, under Budget Committee Members Report, third to the last line, it says discussion ensued that transition costs would be funded in the school board operating budget. I think it more accurately should be stated that the SAU withdrawal committee suggested that transition costs be funded in the school board operating budget. We didn't make that decision.
And the withdrawal committee did not make that decision.
But we didn't make the decision to do that either. I was what I'm trying to say.
It was the school board that made that.
Okay, then say the school board desires that it be in the school board budget.
You see that, Jeff?
Well, I do. It says in the, would be funded in the school board operating budget.
Right.
So I guess you're looking to say the school board is recommending that
Yes.
they're basically
Yeah,
going to put the transition costs.
right.
Can you read it, Jeff, back to us? 'Cause
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is discussion ensued that the school board recommended transition costs, yada, yada.
Second.
I'm good with that.
So it's interesting, there's not a motion to get the minutes on the floor.
I'll make that motion.
All right.
Second.
And then make the motion, we change it.
Peter and then Todd.
You seconded that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Phil.
Phil seconded the change, which
Yeah.
we don't need to, I'll just note
Yep.
the change.
Okay, are there any other changes? David, Julie, John? Okay. If that's it, we'll just make this formal. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Hold your hands up just so Jeff gets a full count.
Okay.
And abstentions. There's your one abstention. Okay, so that's gonna put the meeting minutes off to the side.
We just asked.
We didn't get any correspondence, is that
Am I-
correct, Jeff?
Michael.
Can we amend the agenda to move up the music in the Timberlane School? Does that
We
make?
can act, we can definitely do that.
I need motions, right?
No motion. So we're going to skip right now items 5, 6, and 7, and 8, and jump to 9A. Mr. DeBartolomeo,
9A.
you are 9A, music.
9A. Better than being 9.
You've been here before and you've done this, huh?
I think so.
Yeah.
We're talking about, yeah. Yes.
I saw you at the concert. Veterans
Sunday?
Day.
Sunday? Oh, thank you for going. Yeah, that was a nice event. Do I start? Do you start? How would you like to proceed here? Do you have questions? You've got a synopsis of my budget request for next year. I guess we could start with the summary of the proposed budget and answer any questions that you have there. I'll tell you that the overall budget is down $4,900 from what it was this year. Most of these significant expense account changes are just that. They're coming from a middle school or an elementary budget and going to the high school or vice versa. I'm trying to more accurately indicate where the equipment or the expenses occur to just keep it as accurate as we can. The first one is additional clinic accompaniments in the music program. It's $3,000. That's an increase. Some of the increases well, let's just go over all of them first before we go after specifics. The next increase is $1,000 for repairs in the middle school, and that's just a shift from the high school account. The next one is a decrease, which talks about the increase. So number 3 is a decrease, number 2 is an increase, and they wash each other out virtually. The next one is a decrease of $1,000. The next one is a decrease of $2,600. Middle new equipment district-wide is a decrease again there of $12,000. The next one is an increase of $5,700, and again, that reflects some of the decreases amount there, some of it, not all of it, which went in there because that's where the equipment will be going. And the same thing, it's another decrease of $1,300 for the high school equipment, new equipment, $1,250 for the district equipment, $1,740 replacement. So if you add all of that up, it would virtually indicate the increases in the other amounts that I made reference to. Uniform replacement cycle, we have an ongoing recycle to replace the nearly 500 uniforms that we utilize for both band, chorus, and orchestra, both the marching and the concert tuxes. We've been keeping up with that over the last really 20 years. This year, about $4,000 to replace some worn-out equipment. The decrease in the next line is that shouldn't be a decrease. Is that a decrease of $1,000? That's what it says, but I don't believe that's
You're
accurate.
just missing the parentheses?
No, it should be an increase.
It's an increase of
Oh,
looks like.
okay.
Yeah, it should be an increase. Should be an increase. And then the last one is an increase of $2,250, and that's support activities. We're initiating some new support things for the students. So really, what do you want me to do? You want me to go over each line item and tally it all up? And yeah, no. Life's too short. I'd be glad to indicate, if you have specific questions on specific things. We have an ongoing cycle of repair and replacement for the uniforms. That's a $4,000 expense. We had another $4,000 expense this year. We're just trying to keep ahead of that, and we've been very successful in doing that. The new equipment and the replacement equipment is just really about the same. It's about $2,000 less from what I requested last year. And it's just, again, where that equipment going, whether it's going to the K through 5 elementary program, 3 through 5, that's the instrumental part of it, or the 6 through 8 or the 9 through 12. So I took $10 from the high school and I put it into the middle school, so it reflects a $10 decrease in the high school and a $10 increase in the middle school. I'm just fabricating these numbers, but that's all the increases and the decreases there. I had a significant decrease in the 650 account, which is the account that supports all of our software acquisitions, such as Smart Music and Finale. And we have purchased it's the same program, but they've refashioned it Smart Music. So we've gone from a $40 subscription per student to a $12 subscription per student. And when you multiply that by about 650 subscriptions, not prescriptions, that's reminders, subscriptions, it's a considerable amount. You know, it's about a $9,000 savings. Actually, it's $11,000 savings in that account. So we've taken that and you put it all together, and it's still about a $5,000 less than I'm requesting the year before. The way I formulate the budget is the way I have over the last 30 years. I look at the previous year's expenses. I try to see if there are any extraordinary expenses that came out of a particular account, whether it's supplies or which is mostly music, new equipment or replacement equipment, and then I keep it commensurate to what we need without going crazy. I mean, we're in good shape. We're okay. We don't have everything we want, but we have everything we need. And as there are more out there, of course, but we're okay. We've been able to monitor it on an ongoing basis, and we're doing all right.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Bill?
Two questions. First being, what trends have you been seeing for enrollment at the early ages, 4th and 5th grades at the elementary schools and middle school?
Yeah, I'm seeing actually a little bit of a disturbing trend only on the instrumental side, to be honest. The vocal side and the string side has been very robust, and we've been either maintaining or increasing slightly. Nothing of any great numbers. But on the instrumental side, we had a downturn last year, and we're devoting some resources, both physical, and I've amended and changed some assignments on people to try to bolster those numbers at the middle school, at the elementary school, which obviously then becomes the middle school. So yeah, there is a decreasing trend in enrollment there. But really not on the choral side, not on the string side, but it's been on the band side. And that's something we're trying to address and figure out not only what the numbers are, that's the easy part, but figure out why.
Have you ever seen that happen before?
Not to this extent. Not to this extent.
What extent? Can you give us some?
It's pretty dramatic. Let me just say that. You know, I think when Phil was in the band in 6th grade, he probably had between 60 and 80 comrades in 6th grade, and this year we've got 40. So it's a 50+% reduction. And I will quickly say that we've also had an increase, by the way, in the string side and the vocal side. So the total numbers aren't that desperate, but the particular program that is the instrumental program. I've got some thoughts about that. The competition for physical space and teaching, not physical space, but time space in the elementary program in grades 4 and 5, 3, 4, and 5 for the strings, but just 4 and 5 for the instrumental is becoming very competitive and very selective. In other words, we're really kind of being pushed to the periphery because of all the other requirements that they have during the day, and we're not going to interrupt their academic studies during certain times. I'm trying to kind of put some things together. I'm going to be working more closely with the principals and see if we can work out something. That's part of it. Is it the whole thing? No, I don't think so. But I think that's part of it. It's a pull-out program, and I think it's something we need to address. Whereas the chorus is not a pull-out program, but the string is a pull-out program, so that doesn't correlate. I don't know. It's a little bit of a problem. We have to kind of look at it and address, but that's an astute question. The band is lower, everyone else is fine.
And the second question is, as the kids sort of age up, how is block scheduling affecting?
We've not seen any great impact, a negative impact on block scheduling. We basically have numerically the same amount of time, whether it was in the 8-period day or the 7-period day or the 4-period block that we have. Yeah, we meet them every other day, so there's that aspect of it, but we're meeting them for twice as much time. And we've really not seen that being the problem. The enrollment for virtually all 3 groups is the same as it has been, with a slight decrease. But then again, keeping in mind that the student population has also gone down. Percentage-wise, we're in good shape.
Okay.
It's not as big as it has been, but there hasn't been any great negative, abandoning of ship because of that, because it just hasn't. And I just really want to publicly say yet again, because of the cooperation that we've had, not only 9 through 12, but 6 through 8, in fashioning the schedule so it was really conducive for music. Because keep in mind, there's this big structure in between the high school and the middle school that we service about 8 to 1,000 kids every day, and those kids are 6 through 12. So there was a great deal of communication and cooperation and massaging of the schedule, so they did meet and they did mesh, so there was really no impact. There was no great change in the schedule at the middle school, but, the high school did change. But still, because of the cooperation of the administration within that, it worked out. And I do want to say that. It really was. It works out fine.
Great.
And that doesn't impact the elementary school, which is where we're having the reduction in forces, if you will. We got to figure that out. Okay?
Anybody else have?
So you mentioned enrollment and put some numbers out. How many kids are actually served by the music program? Is
Well-
it every kid in the district, or, I know when they get to the high school level?
Every kid in the district is served in grades K through 8.
Okay,
And then at the high school, we have around 45 to 49% of the high school students, because that's purely an elective program at 9 through 12. But it's not elective in grades K through, I think, 6,
Yeah.
right? And then 6 through 8. It's
Right.
K through 5 and then 6 through 8.
yeah,
And actually, we serve over 100% of the population in grades K through 5, because those students would have their general music experience, and then they could go and have an instrumental experience either on the string side or the instrumental side. So we serve, I don't have an exact number, and I'm not going to fabricate one, but it's somewhere between, I would say, 115 and 125% of the elementary program. We don't have that. It's 100% of the 6 through 8. And then, like I said, between 48 and 49%. I haven't done this year's calculation at the high school.
yeah.
So we're, everyone's, in that regard, we're fine. It's just we're not as fine as we've been in the past. So
Yeah.
the only one I
guess
want to beat is us.
I wanted people to understand just how much the music part touches every kid.
Every
And
kid.
even getting up to the high school, half of the high school is involved in the music program.
Right, right. And I just want to add a slight addendum to that. That's the kids who, I would use that number for the kids who are signed up in classes. That doesn't count the 3 different musicals that we have and all the other things that they do after school, whether it's a jazz combo or a jazz band or the musicals or all of that. So that percentage is actually higher, but I just always stipulate the numbers that of the kids who have actually signed up for those courses, and it's around 47, 48, 49%, which is really good.
And then I just,
Not as good as it has been, so we need to work on that some more.
and how's the pack?
How's the PAC? The PAC is doing well. The PAC is very, speaking, excited to be getting a new coat because the old coat is really horrendous. And we just had a nice discussion with Jeff about that today. That really needs to be addressed. And it is being addressed. I think Brian will attest to that, hopefully shortly. But other than that, it's fine. We do have some issues that are coming about because of, it's not the new building anymore. We've got some technical side issues that we're going to need to address. We're going to need to address things like safety of the fire curtain and safety of addressing the curtains as far as fire retardant material. So those have to come down, they need to be sent off, and we need to do things like that. The line sets, which are the apparatus that raises and lowers the lights and the scenery on stage, they need to be checked for safety because the hemp rope, has a lifespan, which is now where we're at. There are those type of things. We're 17, 18 years old now, so those are going to start coming to fruition. We have lights, theatrical lights that are no longer serviceable because we can't get the parts for them anymore. This is sort of like a forewarning of the future. I didn't put anything in this budget because I just had an assessment done of all of the theatrical aspects of the PAC, everything that involves theatrical lighting, not the domestic lighting. We took care of that last year. That was great.
Right.
In other words, the regular lights in the house. But the theatrical lighting is going to need some addressing because the appliances that are now out there are far more energy efficient, far safer because they do not produce the heat that a 750,000 or a 1,500 watt bulb does. All these LCD, energy efficient, and the heat is virtually, non-existent. And those other theater lamps I can't get, and they're becoming obsolete. So we're hitting that, believe it or not. I have a hard time saying that, but we are. So we're going to need to look at that and see. We're prioritizing everything by a safety issue first, and then we've just really started on that this year. I was amazed when the survey, not the survey, but I had an expert come in and kind of look at all of those things, and he came back with a pretty comprehensive report that it was like, wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah, these bulbs are not only no longer made, this appliance is no longer serviced, this appliance is out, blah, 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 and it's like, and by the way, the fire curtain needs to be tested every 10 years. Have you done that? No, we haven't. All the curtains need to be re-fireproofed every 10 years. Have you done that? No, we haven't done that. So there's those kind of issues that we just need to deal with. Anyway,
Okay.
maybe it wasn't where you were going, but
No, I was just,
I
helpful.
did want to kind of plant that.
So you starting to get
See-
numbers?
I've got numbers. I'm trying to massage them and put them in a priority listing of safety and all of that. I may be coming back. I want to talk to Mr. Dowd first, and we haven't, not quite to the point where I know we're not to the point where I'm saying we should do this, this, and this, and this, but we're going to be there within the next 4 to 6
So
weeks.
these are probably going to the CIP then.
Yeah. I can't speak to that, but wherever they go, the safety issues do concern me. The fire people came in and did an inspection, and that's where this all started from. Can I see the report on the fire curtain? Can I see the report on the curtains?
That's all things to come in the future.
Yeah.
All right, Peter, you had something?
Two quick ones.
Yeah,
Do you have any LED lighting there, or is it all incandescent?
it's all incandescent.
Well, it could be worse. When I was on stage crew, not here, in the 70s,
Yeah.
we had two carbon arc,
Yeah, no, we don't have those, yeah,
spots.
yeah.
Was
Yeah.
back in the days of Edison.
Yeah.
I mean,
Never mind.
Well, yeah, they have electricity now, so it's, it.
okay.
No, but seriously, the only LCD lights we have are the domestic lightings that we just replaced, 18 months ago?
Right.
Yeah. Everything else is incandescent, big bulbs that,
With
anyway.
a lot of heat, a lot of
A
waste.
lot of heat and a lot of wasted energy.
Right.
Are we good?
I think we're good. Everybody good? Thank you for preparing
All
this
right.
and coming by to,
Thank you.
Let's work.
All right. I warmed it up for you, Mr. Woodward.
all right, coming up next, Mr. Woodworth.
All right, the high school budget. First of all, we're talking about a school of 1,100 kids right now. We're down a bit from last year. Next year, we're projected to be 1,048. So we're fitting very well into the high school right now. I think the high school was built for just about the size that we're at. So a lot of the problems of the past have been alleviated, crowding hallways or crowding in lunchrooms, fitting the gym students into the gym. Well, those things have pretty much taken care of themselves. Our budget is basically even. The current year budget is $689,257. The proposed budget is $683,371, which is only $5,886 of a decrease. So pretty level. What you have, I hope you have, is the summary of the proposed budget. So there are about 27 items there. I think 18 are decreases and about 9 are increases. There's nothing too significant in dollars there in those things, and most of them are very predictable variances in supplies, books, as year to year. It's not a standard amount. It's a needs-based piece. So if we are up in books one year, we've probably been looking at which books to get for a while. We finally have determined to retire some, and then we've planned to purchase more. So the decreases are where we've probably taken care of business last year and no longer need that funding. If I look at this list, one of the things, a decrease of $18,000 is because this year, in fact, this weekend, we have our NEASC accreditation going on. That expense is being incurred from last year's budget. And that's where we host people, put them up in hotels and feed them and have them for 3 days, for 3 evenings. So it's quite a process, but we don't have that expense next year, so that's why we only have $2,000 in that budget moving forward, because we'll have some plans to follow through on after they're done, and they tell us some things we have to do, and whatever we have to do to pay people to meet and plan and do the things we need to will be covered with a decreased budget. CTE, you see an increase there. This is our biggest increase in the budget. That's basically our vocational program where we send kids to Salem or Pinkerton. And we're really getting a lot of kids interested in those courses. And that's why it's an increase. It's really just a function of how many kids are taking advantage of that.
Great byproduct of block scheduling.
Roughly, how many additional kids would this $38,000?
I don't have that figure for you, but I think we're sending probably, I'd say 20, 25 more students.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's about $2,000. Give plus or minus windage.
Depends on what they're doing there and whatnot, yeah. But still, that's a significant change.
Is there any thought to sending kids to the new Sanborn, Yeah, aviation program?
And I'm sure that they would be willing to talk to us about something like that. We have not had that conversation, but in talking to Brian, he's creative that way. It would be a quid pro quo. I'm sure, though, he would want to say, well, what do you...
You'd be impeached.
Let me send some of my kids to evening division with you and things like that. So, but I think that those are conversations that we can be creative with and, give some kids some opportunities. Certainly not far off. Right?
You've got an engineering program that they don't have?
That's true. That's true. And I'm sure they have kids whose parents would want to see them be a part of it. Again, so that's a $38,000 change. But, again, we have a decrease. We have something that came off the books in terms of it's paid for this year with the Edgenuity license. It's a 3-year contract. So, we have a payment that's covered what we thought was going to be this year's levels. It actually went down $24,000. It was a product of paying the bill early. So that works out well in our favor.
So you just own this now, this license, or?
It's a 3-year contract,
Okay.
so I think we're in year 2 of it.
When you pay it last year, then you pay it.
Then you have some minor decreases that are on the next page, an increase in business books. So we had a significant increase in business books. We had actually hoped to do some of that last year. We didn't reach a conclusion about which books, and so it's going into next year's budget. Looking further down that page, it's all fairly small amounts that it's just a matter of things either we're not doing or where supplies are ample or enough supply, we don't need to replace as many. You see a slight increase in student travel because some of our clubs are going in, they're going to places we haven't gone before. For instance, this year we have a government group that's going down to compete at Yale. So there's a transportation increase. There's some things like that we're anticipate are going to continue. So the slight increase there to cover what we know will be an increase. We're using less paper, which is good. Part of that's because we're doing things like using our messenger program through Outlook to send messages home rather than mail some things. Teams and clubs and the supply pieces, I said, they're pretty minor on this page, but if you go down to cafeteria tables, that you'll see an increase there of $16,000.
Increase or a decrease?
Let's see, this should be an increase.
Take the parentheses off.
Yes, I'm sorry, but it says increase, and then we have in parentheses, that's a mistake. But it is an increase. We're looking at, over the course of the next few years, switching over to a similar table, but we have, some breaking down, and in the past, what we used to do is we'd have a steady amount, and every year we'd retire some, and every year it just stayed the same. But it really wasn't necessary all the time. But in not doing that for the last 4 or 5 years, we've actually gotten to the point where we have to get after it. Most of these tables now are 10, 12, 15 years old. So over the next 3 years, I think we can replace them all at about this rate. As long as it's not driving our budget up, I think it's a great thing to do.
You looking at anything different?
No, not much. We might change some of the sizes, but they've been really, really great for us. We used chairs and tables, and it was much better than having the tables with the attached, like, stools. They break more often, and we got dangerous. It's easy to replace a chair, and the tables last a long time.
And how many tables do you get for that?
Probably, I want to say 30 or so.
Okay.
Yeah, they're good tables.
Yeah, I was just, in here, the tables and chairs for the students, their
Yeah.
numbers are called out, so we can kind of see, but I wasn't sure how many you.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
got
I
with
think
that.
there's like 90 in there, if we're looking at a few years.
Yep,
They're different sizes, though, so you could make that 40, or you can make it 20.
yeah. I noticed you even included the shipping costs for the tables, because
Yeah, that's in there.
it's a big chunk as
Yeah,
well, just to ship those.
Yeah, it's probably something we could work on, too. Next page, looking down, I see a decrease, because we've spent some money, for equipment that we're not, it's off the budget. We got it last year, whether it's in our workshops, working in the shop with the Woods program and whatnot. Right now, we're in pretty good shape with new equipment. And there's another increase you see down at the bottom of the page for books, calculus books and trigonometry. Those books cost a couple $100 each. It's not like we're buying a ton of new books, but a calculus book is $225 now. It comes with, software opportunities and things like that, but still, it's unbelievable. And I think the future is going to be to try to find online solutions to drive those costs down.
Mr. Woodward, just a quick question. So, math, can the material in the books change that much? I mean, I'll pick on math. So whether we buy the current edition, 5th edition, or we use the previous 4th edition at half the price, would it not work within the school? I wouldn't want the kids to suffer from not having.
I mean, I'm sure you can shop for some books that other schools have replaced that are available that are 4 or 5 years old. But when you have books that are already 10 years old, it's time to get new books. So that's kind of where we're at.
I'm just wondering, there's.
So yes, the trigonometry in there is not going to be a lot
from when you took
different
it.
10 years from now, but the
Right.
book itself will look quite different.
And the curriculums are often built around that, and so.
Some of the advantages to the books that we're getting, what does change is the resources that you can access because you bought the books.
Okay.
So, that's kind of the give to get. But there are some teachers that cling to favorite books that they've had since they were in college, so in my case, that would be like a 40-something-year-old book. You can see no books needed where we spent a lot in the past in some subject areas. And, you'll see that on, like, page 49. You'll see we're down $10,000 in a department there. But there's nothing else there that grabs me as an increase that needs to be discussed too much. Was there anything that you looked at in the larger collection of items that you have questions about?
So I have a general question. So I may have missed it in here. When we saw the middle school, over the last couple of years, dating back all the
In a
way to.
walkthrough, you mean?
No, I'm sorry. Dating back to Mr. Flynn's presentation and then this year's presentation.
Okay.
Well, not this year's, but they're always talking about furniture, getting furniture to better accommodate the students' needs.
Right.
Furniture.
Alternative furniture. So it's like a trend that they're describing to us, and which
Yeah.
is fine. I just want to know do you see continuity, meaning if they're going to go invest in the middle school for this alternative furniture, is the high school going to do the same thing? Because as those students matriculate forward,
Well, this is what will happen. For instance, I had a teacher last year who decided she wanted to try to go without much furniture at all to keep the kids active and moving around doing group work. She had chairs that she could access if she needed them, and she had computers around the outside, and the kids could go and sit at the computers. But if you wanted in the classroom, you saw space. And it was to get after an active presentation mode and to get kids to be able to collaborate more within the classroom. And it was a phenomenon. It was amazing. It was, you go in there and it was an active class. The kids were really engaged. And so there's different types of teaching that can go on based on how you furnish a room. And some of these things that they're doing, say at the middle school, you'll have kids that, they might have a stand-up type of situation. They don't have a seat there. They're standing at almost like a podium where, they could have their equipment or their books or paper, whatever, up, but they could have freedom of movement. So a lot of it is getting after kind of a move towards performance-based type of instruction and assessment, collaboration, movement, almost like a lot of modern businesses are going after, creating work groups and, flexible seating to match that. So that's where it's coming from. We have a pretty traditional group right now at the high school, even with a lot of the younger teachers. But they do like tables. They like to be able to move kids in groups from table to table more than at this point what like that one teacher was doing. But I do think we'll see more of those things. It hasn't hit us yet as a big demand.
so I don't have the answer because this is not my knowledge base, but I just want to make sure there's continuity between the two schools, that if we invest in.
Well, I think there's continuity in the types of competencies that are written into the curriculum all the way through. And we're probably going to see more, but it's not like just a progression. All the kids that are doing this are now going to do it each year. It's teacher to teacher, course to course. At the high school, things break out a little bit differently.
Okay.
We have a lot of different courses, and some of them are pretty traditional in nature, and are taught either, computer course, with computers. But a lot of them also will demand more space. But it doesn't necessarily need, new furniture. It needs, you can move furniture around quite a bit and create opportunities. It's just, in some cases, if you're going to be doing the same thing often, I think it makes sense. But we share classrooms. Nobody has, or very few people have their own classroom. That's not the luxury we have. So we don't have as much of that perhaps as a place that has, more teacher ownership of a room all day.
Okay. Thank you on that part. Phil?
I'm just curious, you very well may not have any data to address this, but I'm curious to your opinion. Teachers, when it comes to this, the term for the furniture.
Flexible.
Okay. It has been parents who have seen it, have testified to how their kids have benefited. Teachers have spoke volumes about it. The school board has acknowledged sort of the benefits and so forth. I'm just curious, like, this is no longer a trend. I think a lot of districts are moving in this direction. How much in your view, does this have to do with the fact that, on average, school districts have dramatically cut back the physical activity that kids get in class over the school day, whether it be recess, whether it be a shortened lunch, whether it be gym down from 5 days a week, now it's 2 days a week. That sort of, you're speculating, I'm sure, but I'm just curious to whether this
It's an
drive to get
interesting
different
point.
furniture is partly attributed to the fact that kids don't have recess like I did.
Well, I don't think you could make a case that at the high school we're experiencing anything that would give me that answer, so it would be just conjecture.
Yeah.
I don't know what the middle school I know that they have their advisories and they're active, depending on what they want to do.
Yeah.
But I think having space and having movement is good, for the body in general. You're probably going to have better circulation, you're going to stay awake more. You're not, when you sit still, you're sedentary, you're likely to drift off. A kid's going to be more comfortable sitting there, head might drop, things like that. So I see advantages to just the way a kid will behave. And I've had so many students that, for instance, a number of kids have ADD. I don't want to give you a number, but say it's 15%, of our kids have that learning style where if they sit still, they're doomed. They're not going to last too long before, they're going to be losing interest, their head might be down, they might be tapping a pencil just to try to,
Is it a
go with
new
the way they
need,
feel.
though? I mean, is it a
So-
new need, or was it a need
No,
back in
well,
the 80s and we just didn't recognize it?
Probably didn't recognize it
Yeah.
as much. We might have just thought that kid was misbehaving,
Yeah.
But, I mean, when I let kids have more movement in the class, those same kids did better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one less stressor for them. If they wanted to get up and sit over there for a little while and then move over here for a few minutes, if they had that freedom, to kind of fix how they feel for a minute, they did better. So I think there's something to in terms of effective engagement of students. As far as aerobic benefits or anything, I don't think you're going to see much there.
Anybody else have questions? It's hard to have a lot of questions when you're down on your number.
Yeah, I'm happy to be able to be down and feel like we're, I think, partially a product of the size of the school and things like that, being able to get the job done, so.
Okay? Nobody on the right? Nobody on the left? I think we're good.
Thank you very much.
Right, next up is transportation. So Jeff, you're gonna cover this?
That is me. I will cover that. Boy, I feel like it's such a late budget compared to the high school. So we're looking at, thank you, Don. Looking at a current year budget of $3,386,461, and looking at a proposed budget of $3,384,297. So we have a slight decrease of $2,000, $2,163. So I'm going to go through that, and that's with just a slight caveat on it, and you'll see why as we discuss. So the initial driver under regular program transportation is up $73,844, and that is in relation to the general percentage increase that we have in our contract with our first student company. And that's pretty much a contractual calculation. We are down in special transportation. However, that number really was put together a lot earlier in the budget cycle. We're going to be getting final numbers for the student services and special education budgets for our next meeting. And as part of that exercise, I'll have to revisit that number to make sure that where we're looking to project out next year for our student needs comports with what we have in the budget. And I will let you know if there are any changes there. We have experienced, though, quite a bit of shared ride situations, both with students from our own district to placements outside our district, and students from other districts sharing rides with students from our district. So that really does not, it really helps maintain that budget. We don't necessarily budget one student, one ride necessarily. We'll budget and look at how many placements we have, how many students would be riding on that bus. And if we end up better off than that, because we've had additional shared rides, good for us. I mean, that's a budget pickup. Extended year transportation, that's up $46,000, and I'm going to be looking at that as well to confirm where we're at as part of that last budget cycle review with student services and special education, up 46,000. You can see where we have been in the past with spend. We've had a voted, 18-19 of 119,000, expended preliminary of about 100,000, projecting at 169,000, and I think that has a lot to do with where we anticipate some of our older students will be going during the summer in terms of the programs and community placement type programs that we have. That tends to run into a lot of additional. So we'll have a final number on that if that should change during our last review. So the next line is vocational transportation, which is up $4,888. That's line 2723,519. That has a lot to do with our, and I won't say our additional participation in vocational programs. That's a part of it. But it also has to do with the way that we have to route buses now with, I believe Salem's changed their schedule a little bit. So it costs us a little bit more to get our kids, our students, to and from those programs, which we were up against this year, and we anticipate will be in the budget and an issue again next year. I don't think they're going back on their programs. So that's pretty much it for our transportation lines. So I don't know if there are any questions there.
I have one. I thought, from my time on the school board, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I thought the CTE students ended up paying for their own transportation. They were responsible for getting to and from the other schools.
We bus them.
We bus them
We bus them.
all the way up through senior year.
If they'd like, we don't, they don't have to
Okay.
take the bus.
Oh, that's great, but somehow I thought it was the other way. I remember at some point we had a couple students come to the school board, actually,
I remember that, yeah.
about that issue.
Yeah.
Were they looking for reimbursement?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are students that we do reimburse, if they're traveling
Oh, okay, okay.
on their own. That does reduce the burden on our transportation. We also have situations that we have students who do it at Pinkerton. For example, it's not just Salem. So we have a couple different options, which is actually a great resource for the district to have those options available.
Okay. Wrapping up transportation.
So, I will, before getting back to the agenda, we have the distinct privilege this evening of having our Director of Technology here. I did have it, I believe initially on the agenda. I have those prepared to look at. If you'd like to take a look at them, we can. And if there are any questions, we can have him come back next meeting as well. It wasn't necessarily on the agenda, it wasn't necessarily posted, but if it's something you'd like to take a look at least preliminarily.
Because on the next meeting, which is the 26th,
Yep.
we have student services, special ed, facility maintenance, curriculum, professional learning.
Correct. Yep. So if you wanted to take an opportunity to take a look at that now, and if you had any questions on it, we could. Up to you.
Well, it's not on the next one.
Correct, yeah. You have to add it then.
Pardon me?
Yeah, you have to add it to that
Yeah.
one.
It would be a very busy evening. You wanna take a look at it tonight? Asking the board?
Would we have to revisit it next meeting
If you
too, since
have
it
to,
wasn't
it's-
posted?
If you have questions. And I'm gonna guess that,
Yeah. Do you have it with you, Ken? Or is it?
I did, I grabbed it, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, come on up then.
Do you want to take like a 5-minute recess? We can get these all correlated, passed out, and get my supporting stuff get set up, or do you just want to?
I think we can just go.
Continue on the
Yeah, we-
agenda. and
exactly.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
You can revisit, go back
Let
to.
Dean do his thing, and we'll be looking good.
So Jeff,
Multitask.
correspondence, we've had
No, of course not.
0. Delegations and individuals, we have none. So if you give your admin report, and then after that, maybe Ken will be ready.
Okay. So, administrative report, I am indeed very pleased to report that the SAU last night approved a budget of $3,310,000 and approved as well an additional, and I shouldn't say an additional, but transitioning a position that we have in the SAU right now that had been our business operations coordinator, which had turned and focused on operations. Much to my delight, they've approved transitioning that back to a finance focused role. So that will provide my office with some relief, thank you, and desperately needed high level
John, you good, that's the first one.
help.
This is the
So
second. It's a,
I'm very pleased about that. And I don't, and Brian, we can get to this in your school board portion.
Fine.
What's that?
You're doing fine.
All right, so we do have a budget currently at the school board, which they're looking at, of totaling a regular budget of $74,311,000 and default budget of $71,853,000. So I'm not certain, and that's why I say we can figure out how to get that back, or how that's gonna get back to this committee. I'm not really sure how we get that budget back to this committee, and I typically present the entire budget, the consolidated budget coming up in the next couple meetings. So the goal, I think, would be to say, at some point, the school board has the budget, they're looking at the budget. If they're done with the budget at a certain point, then it becomes the budget committee's budget. I really want to have one committee have changes that are binding. I don't want to have two versions of a budget going on out there. One be the official version. So I don't know if there's, Brian, do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know what the plan is going forward.
Talking about the proposed.
Sorry?
You're talking about the proposed budget?
Correct, yeah. Oh, thank you.
Two things there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if the board would be intending on, wrapping up any changes they have at a certain point and doing sort of a formal handover.
I would hope that the board will be making some kind of recommendation, if you will, on a proposed budget. I would hope. Thank you.
At
I
some
would
point.
hope sooner than later.
Yeah,
Can't tell you if that's next Thursday night. I know it's a standing item on the agenda,
yeah.
budget.
I've been getting thank you notes from administrators for taking up so much time on the school board agenda so that no one else has to.
So what is this 74,311?
That's the number that they're at, that's the joke, of course. That's the number that the budget's at right now, the school board is looking at. My impression was that they would be taking a look at it, having a run-through of it, and then, of course, we may have changes between, then and now on a number of different funds. But that they would be, if they wanted to make a change to it, they can make a change to it. And at a certain point, then that budget would be coming, here to be the school, to be the budget committee's budget. And this committee would make changes to do whatever you want with it.
So I guess I'm not understanding it quite that way. I've thought that this budget committee, through whatever process we choose, and now we're hearing, school upon school, different key departments, coming up with their budgets, okay, that I assume are vetted by administration somehow, and we're rolling up into a budget. That's our budget,
That's right.
okay? School board's doing some other magic, I don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
And they're gonna come up with a recommendation, no, we prefer to see the budget like this. I don't see where that's our budget at all. It's up to us to take all the inputs from everybody who comes before us, the roll-up, and then see what the school board wants, and we take recommendations or not. But I don't think that's ever our budget.
I think the idea would be, when those recommendations are gonna be coming in. And I'm happy that we're having that discussion, because I'd like to establish what that protocol is going to be.
Because if it was our budget, then we're wasting all these administrators' time and your time in doing all these roll-ups here.
No, not
Right.
really.
Well, the administrators and everything you're looking at is not even 20% of the budget.
Okay?
That's fact. You're not looking at anything to do with payroll and this kind of stuff. So that's a fact of life. I think, what'd you say, Jeff, it was 74.3?
Yes.
Is
Yep.
kind of proposed versus 71.8?
71.5 on the fall.
I can't imagine that we're gonna sit back and let, if you went to the ballot like that, the chances of getting a $74 million, but, you can get into a high school with better odds. That looking at a proposed budget that's $2.5 million higher than the default budget. But by the way, this default budget has not even, there's been no
No.
big debate at the school board about default budgets. Just what's really drove that number down last time was the over $1 million in GMR.
Bond.
Yep.
It's the bond.
And
Right,
and the
let's-
bond, yeah.
Let's just do this, so we stay on track with the administrator's report.
I think that's it for me.
Okay, so I don't want to deviate too much
Yeah.
from the administrator's report, because then we get to,
Well, Ken's here videotaping, so that's good.
Put on autopilot.
Very good man.
Good evening. As every year, I have two budgets for you. Hopefully you got both of them. The first that I'll go over is business services, if that sounds okay. That's the more straightforward one. So I do have an increase this year. Last year was, we were at $237,852. This year, I'm proposing a $261,275 budget, which represents an increase of $23,423. In the summary proposed budget outline, I have the cost drivers explaining this increase. The first line is the data proc maintenance. What that $6,500 increase represents is that we're currently installing a brand-new video surveillance system in all the schools. This is something we're really excited about. It's high-definition cameras, and it's in additional cameras as well. We're replacing all the low-def cameras that we have in the schools. This is a cloud-based system, which is really robust. There is a increased hosting and support costs for that, and that's represented in that increased line item there to cover that for next year. The install itself, this is really nothing to do with the proposed budget, but we did secure a huge grant for that, and that's why we're moving this year to get that in before that grant expires. So that's why we have an increase in that line. Information access fees next down, a little over $4,000. We're anticipating some increases in the applications like AppleTrack, Blackboard, PowerSchool, and TeachPoint. That's a roll-up anticipated increase that we're probably going to get next year. Now, I can get quotes on these applications, of course, but they're not going to guarantee any pricing until the spring. So they can give us estimated costs. But I've seen both scenarios where they give us a quote and maybe it's the same or a little bit less, and I've also seen it increase. So we're going to go with, kind of a worst-case scenario, if you will, and it's a fairly modest increase considering all the different applications we have to run here. The last major cost driver is DataProc software, and this is, again, anticipated increase in Infinite Visions, which is a huge platform we use here, of course, for our finance and HR systems, employee self-service portals in there as well. So we're anticipating a cost increase for that. But we're also looking at a new cloud-hosted lunch program. We use NutriKids currently, which is just hosted here on a server, kind of integrated. Jeff and I were looking at a new cloud-hosted system called Mosaic, which is also owned by Heartland, which is the owners of NutriKids. So that system's been kind of in need of an upgrade for a long time. So that cost is the estimated increase to go to that new platform. And that's, in terms of all the other line items, if you can see in your budget sheets there, are flatlined. There's no increase in those other line items.
So that increase will go into the cloud-based lunch program. Is that a one-time to transition, or is that a yearly increase?
It represents the one-time and the yearly. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure of the yearly. I can get that to you, though.
I was just wondering, is it if it was?
Yeah, well, it's
so
a
it
roll.
includes a one-time.
Yeah, it does include a one-time, yes. And I just don't have the breakdown in front of me, but that covers the whole thing for next year, but I can find out what the recurring would be going forward. Absolutely. Let you know.
On that note, virtually anything that we've been converting over, it seems that they've gone to that software as a service type model, and we're experiencing, we're not doing necessarily an upgrade every 2 years. It's just an ongoing sort of a higher licensing fee.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything we've
it does,
switched over.
certainly the licensing fees are increased when you go to like these robust cloud-based systems, but what you're getting for your money is the application gets upgraded immediately, and we saw this in Infinite Visions where they had some security issues where they patched it before they even let their customers know out in the field that there was an issue. So we were patched, ready to go, whereas if we hosted it here, they would just put out a bulletin, and then meantime I'm scrambling to get our server patched before somebody who found the bulletin that wants to do wrong takes advantage of it. So there's the security issue of that. There's the robustness of being hosted in data centers from Amazon and Google, high availability versus, that RIM's not too bad, but it's not going to compete with Amazon Web Services. We also have to buy, when we upgrade an application like NutriKids, often you have to upgrade the server itself, which is not cheap. That's thousands of dollars. To purchase the operating systems, thousands of dollars. SQL Server, that's not cheap.
So those are all
That's all
items-
included in the cost.
Yeah, those are all items that don't appear on that
Right.
individual software line. They would appear on their own lines.
Correct.
So we're paying a higher fee typically if that software is a service. We're getting the benefit from a number of different lines.
Right, it's taken from a little bit and aggregating them. And overall, I think we save some money and we get a more robust product and more secure product for
A
sure.
much more secure product.
Yep. And we've moved several applications already, Infinite Visions. This past year, we did SNAP, which is the health application. That's now hosted in the cloud. We used to have that at the middle school. So now Infinite Visions, Power School has been in the cloud for a while, so this is the model we're kind of following.
And in fairness, we're not, and there's been a lot of press out there as well, as a quasi-municipal governmental type agency, we don't have the resources of a lot of companies in the private sector to be maintaining our own servers and securing our own servers the same way. And it's nothing against Ken, it's the model. It's
Right, it's the model, and you need to think about not even that, the environmentals with that, the power, the cooling, to power those servers and cool them is, it's not cheap.
Man-hours.
Man-hours, yeah.
Yep.
So. I guess chairs.
What percentage of our schools' buildings have security cameras? And do you have a sense of what percentage of schools are sort of covered with cameras?
I don't want to get into it too much because
Understood.
the security issue with that, of course. And we have cameras in all the schools.
Okay.
And they're covered now to a certain degree. They're going to be more covered after the upgrade with better cameras.
Yeah.
Yep. I know it's really vague, but that's.
Yeah, well, I mean, I appreciate the vagueness.
Yeah.
Peter?
As I recall, there was a new requirement in I think in New Hampshire, I don't think it was a federal requirement, to keep records for kids, special ed kids, for like 20 years after they graduate or something.
Correct.
And have them accessible. Has that been fully implemented here?
It has actually, and quite successfully. We have a system called DocStar.
Oh, that's what DocStar is, okay.
Yeah, which is a cloud-hosted file management system. This summer, we, both the special education department, HR, I think maybe in some of Jeff's department, got together, and we turned this into a little scanning to the cloud sweatshop, this conference room here. We had scanners all in there, and they were going at it. I want to say we did like 60,000 documents or something. It was insane. The number of file cabinets upstairs is really decreased. And what's great about it is you scan it, the paper copies to the cloud, and you can set retention policies. So we can say, keep it for 20 years or whatever the case may be. It's easy to search for and find. And then we, of course, destroyed all the paper copies that were, because they're a liability. Being up there, and if God forbid there was ever a fire here and we were just paper, we start from scratch, I guess. But now we have it in a safe location and ready to go.
No. Well, it's just, how's the connectivity between the buildings? Because
Yeah.
in the past, we had a fiber project
Yes.
that come up, and that was to alleviate issues between connectivity to the buildings.
Yes. We made significant progress with that. We did get fiber to the internet at every single school with the bandwidth increased. It's not the solution I proposed probably here a few years ago with the school board. Every school has a connection to the internet versus what I was looking at doing was connecting the schools through fiber and only going out through one or two schools.
Right.
So we're only paying for one or two internet connections. We're still paying for 8 internet connections, including the SAU. But where the T1 lines we had before, which is just an old antiquated way of connecting schools, very expensive. And
It used to be the fastest thing there was.
used to be, yeah, the 90s, yeah, T1. Used to be impressive. Literally, believe it or not, we've saved money going to fiber. It sounds crazy, but it's true. And we basically, we tie the schools together through site-to-site VPNs,
Right.
it's called. And in my other budget, you'll see asking for an upgrade on the firewalls that maintain those connections, so we'll talk about that.
Yep.
And get the tech. But no, it's good, we're in much better shape than we used to be. And I don't hear about any more issues through testing in high-density, high-use area, periods with the schools about having internet issues,
Yeah.
so.
We actually did have to run, the company had to run additional lines to our campus here, so
Right,
I think it's summer before last, so if anyone gets stuck in that traffic, apologies.
they're on the poles there, yeah.
Anybody else? Okay,
I'm gonna move over the tech.
please.
All right, so I definitely recognize we have an increase here. Last year, we were at $371,233, and this year I'm proposing $525,684, increase of
sorry, what?
154.
We're seeing 495.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, Jeff, did you get the latest ones? You want me to go run these off real quick?
What was your proposed number?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
525,000.
No, I'm sorry, when,
684.
I think you had some additional costs caught up there. When I pulled the core report, it's 495. So I think you might have been picking up some additional.
Oh, okay. I like Jeff's number better, we'll go with it.
So we have a proposed at 495, 684?
Okay, oh, I know what the issue, I know what it is.
What is it?
It's, there's a line that I think is, it's this one. It's 30,000, because that's the difference, right? It's this one. That's a special education,
Yeah, it probably come up in their budget. Yep,
right?
yeah. Did it change at all?
No, well, it did, it actually did, yeah. It's, well, we asked for 30 last year, it got knocked down to 10, we're asking for 30 again.
Okay.
So that's in the special education budget?
Okay, yeah, so you can talk to that and.
Okay. Yeah, so the line I was referring, that I thought was in mine, is actually in special education, is line 100.1200.738. That's like a computer replacement, which only applies to special education. So they'll talk about there in their budget, I guess.
And if you recall the last, and it's not in his budget, he was thinking it was, it's something that he had budgeted for, but it's not in the budget you see in front of you. If you recall, Meg Kelker, Principal Kelker came to us at the last meeting and said, my budget's up, but there are some lines in here that Tony will be talking about next week. Now Ken is here saying the same thing, that there are some lines that I have not included in that report because they're gonna be in the special ed budget, next week, so.
Okay.
That's all, nothing to worry about.
Yeah,
They
that's
have,
okay.
you now have the same report they
Good
do,
to see
so
you.
everyone's happy.
Move on.
All right, so, yeah, 495,000, we'll go with that. So the first line to talk about is consultant technology, which is up 3,000 I'm requesting for next year. We really knocked down the line for virtual field trips from 30,000 down to $4,750 for this year. We've been getting a lot of requests to go on those virtual field trips again. So I'm just asking for a $3,000 increase in that line to fund some more,
Can you
basically.
just explain, what does that encompass, a virtual field trip?
Yep, it's so the pyramids of Egypt, for instance, this is maybe something we do, I'm not entirely sure, but they would pay the museum or whoever collects those funds for the chance to set up in the classroom, the equipment that would enable the kids to go in and explore the museum and have presentations. Oftentimes, I know I think it's either Cincinnati or San Diego Zoo have like a zookeeper that you book. And so real time, the zookeeper's there talking to your class, answering questions, talking about animals, things like that.
Okay.
I think it's great because it gives chances to students to see things and experience things they normally wouldn't be able to, of course.
Saves in transportation costs, too.
Right.
We have another issue with transportation, and that is that the way that our buses are staggered, the buses that we need for the field trips are for the high school, for example. High school starts early, but those buses are now being used for the elementary schools. So they have to wait until those buses come back to send our high school students out. Vice versa, with the elementary, when they can leave right when they get to school because the buses are available, but they have to be back in time for those buses to be able to get back here to this campus for the earlier dismissal. So we really are able to maximize a lot more time on these type of field trips, and we end up not being able to get a full day out of it anyway.
Is that something that teachers and classrooms are doing across the district from K through 12, or is it?
Yeah, well, it depends on the teacher. Some are more adept than others at doing this, and oftentimes they do it as part of their yearly curriculum,
Okay.
if you will. And like a fourth grade science, for science may do this trip to some museum every year, and that's just something she's used to doing. So it varies. To answer your question, yeah, K through 12 available. It varies on which teachers do it.
Okay.
But we'd like to make it available. We try to, the new ones that come out, we have tech integrators that make teachers aware of these, and they can, take the opportunity to do those if it fits into their schedules.
Roughly how many can you do a year with that?
It's a good question. It's a hard question to answer because the prices vary so much. Some of these only cost $100. Some cost $1,000.
Historically, do you know how many?
Oh, I don't, John. I can find out for you. It's a good question. I don't know. I think average cost is $200 to $400 for one. For one virtual field trip, if you will. All right. Oh, yeah.
On the virtual field trip thing, so if it's, let's say some teacher in Pollard wants to have her students do one of these, how do I put it? Can, like somebody from Sandown or Danville in the same grade say, oh, I want my kids as part of that too, and basically somehow tie in different classrooms into one field trip?
They
or-
need to have they need to have the right equipment.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I do think they do that, yes. In some cases, absolutely. Yep. They can have multiple classes joining the same experience. I'm pretty sure they've done that with like the zoos. We've had multiple classrooms in the same type of room, yeah. All right, moving down to information access fees. This is up $16,665. The reason for that is mostly because of this new data governance plan that we implemented. The school board approved this back in June, and this comes from all that data privacy and security laws that went through last year from the state. We put in some systems to help train staff and teachers, and it's been really successful. It involves them watching videos on latest trends on phishing attempts, hacking attempts. Basically what we're seeing day to day in this school district and every school district out there is that we're a target for sure. They've realized that the soft belly of the network, so to speak, isn't the network itself, it's the user. Tricking the user into giving them information or installing something they didn't know on their computer, making them, having them click on a link and really installing a keylogger that tracks all their stuff. So we put out there, know before is a line item in there that it's $11,000, but that provides the awareness and training for the entire district. We have everybody take it, not just teachers, but paras, people that work in the lunchrooms, janitors, counselors, of course, administrators. Everybody takes this training. We're going to make it required every year. So that's something we put in this past year. Pixis online PD training is also in there. It's only $3,500. I'm sorry, $3,000. That is a real bargain, I think. It enables us to put a lot of PD online. There's a lot of pre-canned PD out there for Google, Microsoft, some curriculum stuff, but we can also make our own custom PD, and we have for the applications we use here. Hardest part about PD is when to do it, right? Before school, after school, everybody's so busy during the school day, the teachers are swamped. So this enables anybody to do these videos and this training on their own time, which is really worked out great. Other cost drivers here, let's see. Those were the two main ones. We also have, I didn't mention it in my budget sheet, but on the detail report, there's the Student Data Privacy Consortium. That is, we pay $1 a student a year to belong to this organization that helps us vet third-party applications for being compliant with all their laws. So all the federal, state laws, even our own school board policies, they can help make arrangements with those vendors to make sure they get those contracts signed, vetted, and then we can implement them into our schools here. We have a list of approved vetted apps that we use. What's that?
Vendors.
Vendors, yeah, vendors too, yep. It's a lot of work, so this, belonging to this organization for $3,500 a year is, I think, really worth it. And it's really the hardest part of this whole law is that we can do a better job of, we can maintain our own systems, but when we give our data to somebody else, how are we ensured that they're taking care of it? So this is really our best way we can do that, is that they sign these contracts and agreements that they're taking care of our data and guarding it, and they're maintaining their systems, all that stuff. All right, moving down to software. The cost here is two things. Our Adobe licensing is in kind of great need to get updated. We're just running a really, really old version of Adobe. So not only things that administrators and teachers use, like Acrobat Pro, which we use all the time to modify PDFs, but also in the classrooms at the, especially at the high school, like Dreamweaver and these applications that students can use in tech classes. We determined that we can get 200 seats. It's, I believe, $5,000, and that will cover us for everything we need. That was the best deal for us. We looked into district-wide, but we covered the whole district. It was overkill. It was expensive, and we don't need that. So this was a good compromise. The other increase with this line is Microsoft licensing has gone up. So we need to maintain that. There's been a couple $1,000 increase with that. New equipment and replacement equipment. So there was a change here, and I want to explain this, make sure everybody understands it. And Jeff and I talked about this. The big swing in the line here is the Chromebooks. So student Chromebooks, we do the, which is in our technology plan for access to technology for our students. Every year we supply the 6th and 9th graders with Chromebooks. Last year we had those in new equipment because we weren't replacing anything. We didn't have the Chromebooks to replace, so we were buying new. This year was the first year after that initiative that our 6 through 12 is done. Everybody's got a Chromebook. So we're 1-to-1 across the secondary schools. So next year, we're moving those Chromebooks to replacement because to put it simply, we're replacing Chromebooks now. We're not buying new ones. Well, we're buying new ones, but we're replacing old ones. It's kind of a subtle difference, but the money involved was a swing, and that's why we have, there's a $63,000 drop in new equipment, and it's really attributed to that. Now, there's some other things in there I'll speak to that we're asking for this year. The first is a 3D printer at the high school. They have a 3D printer now. It's going on 8-9 years old. The useful life of it's kind of done. And I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. The biggest issue with that printer and older printers in general is that you've all seen 3D printers. They print out something that's three-dimensional, obviously. It's kind of like plastic. There's support material that holds that in place. The older printers, that support material that holds it in place, the arches and whatnot, is just part of the piece, which is not great, right? You think of maybe you're printing out a globe or something and has this, because it needs to dry, it has a support material that holds it up. It dries, you have the globe, but also the support materials on there as well. The newer printers, the support material is water soluble. So you take that globe with all the support material, you put it in the water, the support material dissolves away, and you have a nice globe. That was probably not a great example, but you can think about parts that fit together, gears and whatnot. The support material is obviously going to be in the way of building things. And that's what they're running up against, is that support material really needs to come out of there. And that's been a thing for the past few years with 3D printers, and I'd really like to get that put in. Also on that line, they're looking for a large format printer. That is something that makes banners. So currently, the high school and the district at large goes out and purchases those banners through printers. I was told that if we bought this large format printer and do our own banners district-wide, this would basically pay for itself in 3 to 4 years. And also the benefit of having our students do it. So these large-scale products are something our students can do for us, obviously with the proper supervision. Every school could have access to this format printer to do banners and large-scale printing. So that's why that's in there.
Is that like an E-size plotter you're talking about?
Something like that, Peter, yeah. It's yeah. I don't know what it physically looks like, but we don't have one now. That's why we're asking for one, but it's mostly the banners, I was told, is what they want to be able to bring in-house and do themselves. The middle school is asking for an audio and video upgrade in their CAF, and that's $19,890. You might ask yourself, as I did, why is this stuff in my budget, some of this stuff, and not in the school's budgets? So let me just explain that the reason why we put it in mine versus the schools is that if we considered a district resource or supplier initiative, it went in mine. If it was just for the school, it went to the schools. So the 3D printer, even though it's at the high school in their room, the middle school students are still going to come up and use it. They could still have STEM classes or students from the elementary come up and use it. So we consider it a district resource. Same thing with the large format printer. That's going to be a district-wide thing that every school could have access to. The middle school audio and video for the CAF, again, it's a district space. We have parent nights there. We do district events there, the STEM nights. So that was to outfit the CAF, as the name the kind of title alludes to, is just state-of-the-art audio and video that they could do presentations in that space. Any questions on that? Those items? No?
This 3D printer?
Yep.
What size, what's the largest size you can make with that?
Largest size?
Parts?
Oh, I don't know, John. That's a good question. They had one quoted out, so I can, if it, I could send it to you guys. Absolutely, I could take a look at it. The
I was
model.
just looking at the cost of it for.
Yeah.
almost
Yeah, no, it's
$30,000 for a printer.
it's expensive. Yeah.
And how many kids actually utilize it? Is it only one class or?
No,
engineering
it's-
Type classes or?
No, it's engineering. There's other classes as well. STEM type classes. Even mathematics classes and stuff can get in there. And again, it's not just the high school. Middle school would utilize it too, and in some cases elementary.
Yeah, I mean, 3D printing is something there's a company in Manchester that's talking about 3D printing replacement organs for people.
Yeah.
Understanding 3D printing is a big thing for the future. That's why I was just wondering what this, for 30,000, what do we?
Yeah, no, it's a state of the art that you could do a lot with, obviously, and as you allude to, there's a lot of applications for this. It's not going away. It's not a fad anymore, right? It's an
Right.
actual tool and solution that industry is using. But they're not cheap, as you can see.
The other thing too is if you're going to, it almost behooves you to keep the old one too. Because I'd be interested in finding out what 3D printer you're talking about, but I have a nice one at home. I got a killer deal on. But to print something the size of this cup that's empty for the most part, is still going to take it 2.5, 3 hours. And you got a class of even 10 kids.
Hope you're not thirsty.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like it's taking you a week to print the classes
worth of work.
Right. And I think that's part of the cost is the speed at which it can print and the size at which it prints and how intricate the parts can be out of that. All right. So that, new equipment, oh, yeah.
Another question. Something like that, is the technology changing so quickly that in another 5 years, there might be another 3D printer that's even better? Is this something that?
That's for sure. I can guarantee you in 5 years we'll have something better.
Something like that? No
Yeah,
idea.
we're looking at leasing too. It's a good question. Yes, I actually asked that them, and they're looking at leasing as well. But for budget, I guess for the budget, they put in for the new. But as a follow-up, I can get back with leasing numbers. I think it's a fair question.
This is the challenge we have. Everything that you do in your work is technology-based. It changes all the time.
Yep.
We want our kids to work with the state-of-the-art and the best. It's just expensive to keep up with the most expensive and the best.
It is, yeah.
So-
Yeah, and it's like, like the lease versus buy dilemma. Do you always want to be paying all the time?
Right.
Or do you want to, just invest the money and then after 4 or 5 years run the risk of being out of date? It's an interesting question.
In-house versus cloud.
Right.
I mean, it's the same concept.
Yep. All right, moving on to replacement computers. So this is, obviously up significantly, 169,300. That 115 of that is the Chromebooks, which was again in new equipment last year. That's not any more money than we asked for last year for Chromebooks. Is the same amount. But the big new budget driver in this line is the firewalls, which I spoke to briefly before. In our CIP, it was due to replace the firewalls this year. They are, I want to say, maybe 6 or 7 years old, right around that line. It's not like they're failing us or anything like that. It's just that they're not as robust as they could be. Not only from a network standpoint, like a throughput or performance standpoint, but also from a security standpoint. Newer firewalls are more aware of like mobile applications. So I won't give you any examples here, because I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but there's things that our firewalls can have issues detecting, more or less, being an older generation. So the new generation of firewalls is more aware of these applications and can classify them and block them appropriately. So that's that's in there, and that's part of our CIP rolling projects, where we try to pick a major area of the network a year or every other year and upgrade it, so we're not paying for everything all at once, of course. Also on here,
The maintenance and support that goes with that, is that something we've been paying, or is that a new,
we've been paying that every year.
so
Yep.
that same cost?
That's the
so
same
that's not a
cost,
new
yep.
cost?
Correct.
So you're
Yep.
just replacing the hardware?
Correct, yep. Also on this line is the PAC projector replacement. So this, again, it's in my line, because I guess it was in the technology line to buy the original projector and the one that replaced it. This would be the third one if we replace it, since the PAC's open. The current one is about 9-10 years old, I'm told. It's having issues, basically. It broke down last year. It required a significant repair bill to fix. I think it was around $3,500 to come out here, and they obviously it's up in the rafters. They have to get up there with a lift, and they also the bulbs on are incredibly expensive, like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. They burn out. It's an older projector, so it's what I'll call low def. They're not. It's not if you've been in the PAC and seen it, it's not a great picture, right? The one we would replace it with is one of the new laser ones. It doesn't use bulbs, just is lasered. It doesn't get hot as anywhere near as much as the current projectors, and it's a fantastic picture, HD or better, high resolution. And that was about it for the major items.
Do you know how many hours we put a year on that projector?
Oh, geez. Thousands, probably. They use it a lot. You know, that's just, performances. They have, if you go in before any show, they have a slideshow going, showing upcoming events and stuff, so they use it a lot. And we also use that building for professional development and presentations, community events. So that's actually where it broke down, was a professional development seminar and something. We had to roll in a replacement.
Okay. I have a question. What do you do with all the old Chromebooks?
Well, the ones that were handed, so our 8th graders this year got them in 6th grade. So they've had them for the 3 years. We're going to give them new ones in 9th. And the reason for that is that I can't give a 6th grader a Chromebook in 6th grade, brand new, and expect it to last through 12th grade. I don't think that's reasonable. 7 years for the Chromebook is not, that's not very reasonable. It probably wouldn't be very successful. So we had to kind of pick up a spot in the middle. 9th grade, new school, new Chromebook, get them through high school. So those Chromebooks, what we're going to do, the 8th graders, they don't have a lot, the Chromebooks don't have a lot of resale value, of course. We only spend $160 each, maybe, for them. So after 3 years, some of them are kind of beat, of course. We're going to let the kids, we're going to let the families keep those, is the plan. We're going to voluntarily turn in. If they don't want the Chromebook, they can turn it into us. We're going to take it out of our Google domain, meaning that we're not going to administrate it anymore. We'll have the parent sign a waiver that they're taking the Chromebook, and it's no longer going to be administered or protected by us or whatever. But they would just take it with them. And that's the plan. That's what we proposed when we introduced the one-to-one program.
Yeah, just wondering does the expense completely go away on the old ones?
The expense in terms of
They completely depreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're not updating them anymore.
right. There's no and we can do this remotely. Is we can just literally just say all the 8th grade Chromebooks, take them out of our domain. When the next time the student opens up the Chromebook, it's like it's brand new, fresh out of the box. They would have to sign in with not a school account, some other account. So, and we'll make this is our first year where this is happening, so we'll have to obviously educate the parents on what would be involved with that if they're interested, and let them know that, those Chromebooks won't have like a web filter or anything like that if they choose to take them. Just make them 100% aware, so there's no surprises. And if they don't want to keep it, they could turn it back into us. And, maybe we find a need for it, maybe we recycle it.
It'll
Probably
be
recycle it.
It'll be the same for the juniors in high school next year, right?
Correct, yeah. That's the plan, yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Get back to your other job.
I know. Take the cameras off autopilot.
All right. One more presentation in the books. So that takes care of 9A, B, C, and now D. So I'm going to go back to reports of committees. Budget committee members. So, John, do you have anything new? You had a meeting this week?
We had a meeting after our last meeting, and we basically got together, looked at the new verbiage that was requested to be added. Hampstead's lawyer had asked for a couple of sentences. We actually have a whole page that goes through the liabilities. It boils down to what we pay as percentage-wise between the two districts is what the liabilities would break out to.
That's just a percentage, but we don't know the number.
Well, we won't, yeah, so, I mean, there's numbers that were given from current, based off of now. So we based everything off of what our numbers are now, but it's a percentage of what it would be going forward. If we vote to leave the SAU and all the employees come with us, we carry those liabilities that we're already paying right now. We would just be carrying the percentage of it. So we would, so what we did is we met, we looked at that We took another vote. We weren't a full board, we had one member missing, but we took a vote again on recommendation of the plan, voted on the plan. And originally, we had one abstain and one no against the plan. Everybody else voted for it. The abstention moved to a yes to support the plan. So we only had one vote against the plan after that verbiage was put in, because it satisfied that one member's issues with liabilities that he felt was missing. So we just re-voted, we re-signed the document, and we were sending that back off to the Board of Education to review it again.
So what's the next step?
It goes back to their meeting, which I believe is in December, and it's up north. So somebody's gonna take a trip. I think Karen Steele had said she would attend that meeting, along with the lawyer that's been working the plan with us. So, and I'm sure Hampstead will be there as well. So, and it wasn't supposed to be a full re-review, it was supposed to just review that one piece that was asked. So we'll see how that goes. We're anticipating it'll pass because we added more in than was requested at the meeting. So, and then the other committee, CIP has not met. So I have no update with CIP.
Okay.
There's been nothing, no communication on CIP yet, but I hear there is a facility director spot, so.
Yeah.
Hold on, Peter?
A question on the new withdrawal report. Is it available publicly yet?
Yes, it should be online.
Great, thank you.
Yes, so there was some discussion because it changed page numbering and stuff, so I think it should be up. I haven't looked to see if it's been updated. It just had to be redone, so we were gonna add it in without a number, the signing, the signing sheet, and adding that page in, change the page numbers, which changes the index, and so I think Mrs. Belcher was gonna take a shot at that.
Okay. That it for you?
Yeah.
Brian?
Okay, a couple of things here. Yes, we do have a new facilities director, Gary Patterson. So we will be, I guess Jeff is going to be spearheading, we're going to be trying to get a CIP meeting soon and later. Because we've been, it's almost like a subcommittee. We have a small group that's trying to put together a facilities plan for the warrant. So we're trying to get a bunch of this, the grunt work, if you will, done, so we can have presented to a bigger group, the CIP, and before it becomes really officially public, so we can get the CIP support and both elected board support. So we're trying to, put together the couple $1 million in projects here for years 1 and years 2, and so that's in the works. So, but that's because Gary's just been only on that position for less than 2 weeks. I think that'll have to do with the holdup. Other school board news, as Jeff pointed out, let's see, we have not, it's a standing item in the budget, and I think on the last meeting, I think was just a matter of we were just updated on the budget, and the principal change was the drop in the GMRs. That was, it's a pretty big number.
Wild, yeah.
Over $1 million, right?
I'm sorry, what was that again? I didn't hear you.
GMR.
The GMR rate was over $1 million drop. So
Really?
So instead of it being, let's say, a reasonable 3 to 5% increase, it was a 1.7% decrease,
So it was,
Wow.
which we'll
So-
take based on the not so distant past double-digit increases on the GMR, so I like it.
and Jeff has already mentioned that at last night's SAU meeting, we approved a SAU budget. So we're supposed to be having our next SAU meeting at December 4th. So that's around 2.3 million, I believe. Other items in the school board affecting the budget committee. Did they have any, Jeff? I'm trying to think of any, can you think of any, Jeff, that,
You guys have been focusing a lot on the budgets to
yeah,
follow.
but I mean, stuff that they would care about. I mean, there's been, yeah, there's obviously there was a lot of presentations on curriculum updates, but I don't think that's really, that was a couple of hours, so I don't think really that's a budget committee show here, if you will. Trying to think if there's something else.
You guys do anything with facility tours?
We haven't, no, we haven't.
Oh, now that you mentioned that. So we were talking before the meeting on the facilities tours, and what we're looking at is primarily a maintenance plan, which we've included, I believe, factoring in the amount of the bond, the amount that we had in building improvements in capital expenditures last year. It's about 2 million.
2.3 almost.
So you look at putting that amount of money back in, what would it do, maybe even a little less? What would that do if you were to, look at it more from a maintenance perspective? And so one of the reasons CIP has been held up a bit is to determine, that's a big amount. Now that we know that it's not going in the direction of a bond with full, significant improvements, what does that look like? What do you attack first? And the scale and scope of the projects that we're looking at in the high school, for example, are of a larger scale. And so we're looking to shore up some solid numbers to make sure that we have those to present, shore up with the CIP committee before, being accepted into plans. This is a little bit different, I think, than what we've done in the past with the CIP, because we really haven't had a solid idea that, look, if you're gonna take as is, where is, make it better, repair it, replace, whatever, maintain it. That gives it a solid direction, which now Gary, the new facilities director, is working through, and we're working through to get some solid numbers on. So,
Yeah, we're trying to put together some major capital improvements and then also major maintenance. So I guess I would hope you'd see like a $300,000 to $500,000 a year just in maintenance.
Probably more than that.
Yeah, but it's, then because you have other capital projects that will be up to 2 million. So, as Jeff said, last year between the bond, I think the bond was $1.6 million, $1.7 million, and then we spent another $700,000 on roofs. So we spent like $2.3 million between payment and the roofs. So it'd be nice to take that similar number and just
Something new.
put it into, and then you do that for 2 or 3 years in a row, and you'll see a big difference around here, I think.
And I think the problem with the 20 years, you do these repairs, and you're hoping to get a 20-year life out of them. When you can take and handle and take on projects as they're needed, it's a lot more value. You're not doing everything that doesn't need to be done, and you're doing stuff that's too long gone. Well, it'll be a much better design. We'll get what needs to be done timely.
So that's the update, so it's all right.
So when we start looking at that difference as talked about earlier between the proposed budget and whatever the default is, I know the residents of Plastow have all seen an increase in their bills this past year because of changes in the evaluations. And then, so Danville folks have been struggling, Sandown folks have been struggling, to get buy-in. We need to work on buy-in for the budget then,
No question.
both this committee and the board need to really kind of,
Because that's the difference.
yeah.
That's the bulk of the difference. But I think that Plastow number is deceptive, though. You had an increase in your tax rate, and your assessed value went up, but your tax rate must have dropped.
So I can speak to that. I've
Okay.
actually run the numbers on that. I have access to the, all the assessed values over the last couple of years, for some other work I do for the planning department. So what really happened in Plastow was two things. The first is that we have a lot of commercial property in town, and that commercial property went down, and basically it's about a $1.1 million of taxes that the commercial properties would have had to pay. Now it's been transferred over to the residences. So
It's a transfer.
it's a transfer, okay? Now, most people don't recognize that, but again, if you look at the numbers, who's gone up, who's gone down, and it's there.
Single-family homes.
Oh, the other thing is, most single-family homes went up what I would call a reasonable amount. I look at my house, and I don't even mind saying this on TV, I'm still under-assessed. I can sell my house today.
Let's get that address and we'll let them know.
They're done until next year.
That third bathroom?
So
Les?
no, I haven't done anything. But there was a huge increase in the assessments just since last year on the condos. We have a lot of condos, and a number of them have gone, most of them went up 40 to 50% in their assessed value. People were at 80,000 last year, and they're at 120,000 this year.
So it seemed like the discussions I've had with people have, the $1,000 increase has been what has been reported per,
There are some of those. I'll tell you, again, it's all public record anyhow. Mine went up $200.
okay, yeah.
Okay, there's some things like that.
You're going to
It's a
get the
real mixed
angriest
bag.
folks are going to be the most vocal, and that can
Yeah.
Yeah. but, I mean,
disproportionately reflect
And even if a
reality.
perception, I know people, not everybody understands valuations and tax rates, and when they see the tax rate go up, and it is, even if it's just a perception that they're paying more,
Oh, true.
it's gonna be a struggle, I think, to pass
Yeah, absolutely.
a budget that has a large difference in it. So once this committee goes through and looks at the whole budget, and we make our recommendations, and, and we have a number that we put forward, I think that we need to work on, there was talk last year of going to the selectmen of each of our towns and presenting, and I just think that we should probably work on that more this year.
Absolutely.
And I fell on that as well. I didn't follow through with my side, so I need to do a better job, I know that, of having an open forum with
Selling the
our own,
CIP.
yeah, our own residents in our own towns, and trying to explain why the budget is the budget and why we need this one to pass. Yeah, so, so once we have a budget and we vote on it and we put it forward, I think that,
I mean-
the intent is for us to support our budget we put forward.
You could look at this as, this is the plan in lieu of another bond, right? I mean, we don't wanna replace and get another bond and tie everyone down to another $2 million payment every year. If we can put this kind of money away and,
Not pay
fix
interest.
as we go, then, maybe there's not a need to do that, right? Cause it'd be a lot harder to go sell the bond, I think, to the district.
Right off the bat, 10 percentage points. So, we need simple majority to increase
All
the
right,
budget.
so I'm gonna do
versus
this. I'm gonna wrap
67.
up. Is that it for your
That's
school
it.
board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're now gonna go down to old business. And Jeff, you've already talked a little bit about the facilities director. And facility tour updates, I really don't think those are gonna be coming by.
Oh, well, I think that's what Jeff's talking about. What are you trying to do? Set up some facilities?
Well, the projects that we're looking at to include are primarily main campus, high school, middle school. And I've got the facilities director tied up in knots, trying to get quotes and all that. Would it make sense to do just these buildings?
I was just saying,
Yeah.
this is so late in the
Given that
process
there's
now.
no new faces either this year,
Up to you.
I would rather have them focus on
Getting the numbers?
doing that instead of
Yeah.
entertaining us at the
I
schools.
think each of us here have seen the things that need to get worked on.
It's not new news, yeah.
It's not new news.
I'm fine with that. I think they're valuable, more for folks who are maybe just, this is their first year, right? I mean, I did it my first year. I would go if they were offered, but I just hope it's not something that's gonna go by the wayside going forward. I think it's something that it's a tradition I think should stay and should be offered every year, so that everybody sitting on the budget committee and the school board can get out there and, be in the actual schools that they're governing over.
I think it's almost impossible if you know your town schools, even if you live in Plastow, your schools here in Plastow the best. You have a lot of schools that are outside of Plastow, and it's very difficult to listen to requests from principals
Yeah.
and facilities without having the
When
benefit.
I'd never stepped foot in any of the other elementary schools when I did the facilities tour.
Very, very useful. I would
When you
agree.
go to Sandown, they talk about the movable wall and you have to see it and see how they use their space.
Yep.
When they start, it's for you to understand.
I don't think these are going away.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So what we have next for our meeting is, it'll be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, which would be November 26th. We will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to have student services, special education, facilities maintenance, curriculum, and professional learning. That'll be a full plate.
Yeah, those two were, it's almost like tonight with Ken with business services and tax, student services and things.
So right after that, you should be able to wrap up the sum of all these presentations
Yeah.
for us to put
Yeah,
together.
it's likely, even at that meeting, I can have something, and then if you make any changes based on what's presented, we can capture those, that's up
Right.
to you.
I mean, I don't know where they're gonna come in. I mean, they've all been moderate so far. If you could put something as a preliminary
Yeah.
number of what we've been looking at cumulative,
Where it's at.
where it's at.
Yep.
And that's a good starting point, and then we can digest this over Thanksgiving.
And I think you'll have the context on a lot of those numbers from the presenters next week.
And then following that, we'll have one December 12th, and that's where we'll start beginning to hopefully hear more news from the school board, where they're moving along with their recommendations. We'll have our information from our presentations, and we'll go from there.
I believe, and I don't think that it's on there, I believe we have a meeting scheduled by our bylaws on the 26th.
Yeah, we typically have one that we don't always have, but it's on the books.
It's on
I
the
remember
books.
if we did it last year on the
What do you say?
26th. I don't
Oh,
think we
on
did.
December?
December, that'd be the second meeting in December, would be 12/26.
Right.
So, and I can leave it on, I can put it back on it is part of our schedule, I can put it back on the schedule. Typically, it's something that we've looked at, and if it's not needed.
Right.
And part of that is,
Well, it's a good placeholder.
it's a good placeholder. Part of the problem with that meeting and the timing of it is a quorum, quite frankly.
I think we did it last year, though, on the 27th. Last year it was the 27th. I think we still had it.
Yeah. My concern is this year, I mean, we're already halfway through November, and we haven't had a CIP, we haven't had any of that we've even been able to look at, so, yeah, I'd like to, keep it out there, because we might end up using it this year just because of some delays that we've had with that. And that is a big thing, CIP. So,
Okay. So that's our agenda going forward. So Jeff, can you do this, since we know what we're gonna be seeing for our next meeting? Basically, use this agenda template and just resend it back out, so.
Yep, that's the items.
Make a motion to adjourn.
There we go. And a second by David. Those in favor? Unanimous.
Everybody. Awesome.
8:50.